I might just spend a minute or so doing a little bit of an intro to Abby. Abby, I'm sure you can do it so much better than I can. So please do let me know if I've missed anything. But just while we wait to see if anybody else is joining, this is going to be our third FWD Academy session of the year. So thanks to those of you who are return attendees. It's great to see your familiar faces on the screen. We're going to be kind of covering the topic on attraction, retention, and progression today, essentially all about how talent actually works. So we are joined by our very own Abby Chapman, who is leads recruitment and attraction at Booker, brings a ton of extensive experience leading and kind of working in talent acquisition, employer branding, and workforce planning as well. Super passionate about creating inclusive and sustainable workplaces. Abby works closely with leaders to understand what is it that attracts people to organizations, what encourages them to stay, and how can opportunities for progression be made more accessible. So Abby is one of our future leaders. We've worked together already this year, so naturally this felt like a really great opportunity to bring her in to hear from some of the Booker perspective, really what's going on, what are you seeing, and yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to be hearing from Nick, as well as I mentioned, our VIP attendee, to hear from some of his perspective as well. So, Abby, I'm just going to pass it over to you, and yeah, let me know if I've missed anything.
I think that was an absolutely epic introduction. I don't know if I could introduce myself like that. That was lovely. Thanks, Devla. So yes, I'm hoping that this looks familiar to you, that this is a session you signed up to. We are going to be talking about attraction, retention, and progression today, and how talent actually works in businesses. So if you are in the wrong place, please stay. We would love your input. But yeah, so that's what we're here for. Now, I was going to do an introduction myself, but Devla has done it fantastically. But I will just caveat that, yes, I do lead the recruitment and attraction function at Booker. I have worked here for 7 years now. It feels like just yesterday I joined. And actually, I started my career 11 years ago, agency side, and Booker was my client. And I was so proud to onboard them and be able to bring this opportunity to my candidates at the time at agency. So I was really, really excited about that. And then my boss poached me and brought me in-house. So it definitely has been a bit of a whirlwind. I started my career as a partner. I moved into a manager role, and now I lead the function setting the strategy. So it definitely has been a really lovely career here. I'm not going to give you all the spoilers now because I do want to draw on some of this a little bit later to talk about within the session. But one thing I think is underpinned by my career is just how passionate I am about candidate experience, whether that be external candidates joining our business and how that shows up, or alternatively internal colleagues and how they move within our business, the opportunities available to them. So that's a little bit about me. Some may say I'm a subject matter expert. That cringes me out a little bit, but I know it's the term that we use. So hopefully you'll find some interesting bits along the way here today. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about how talent actually works in businesses and what you can take away from that today. That's all about what really attracts people to businesses, what makes them stay, and how progression really happens. I love a little bit of a chit chat, I'll be really honest with you. So I'm really hoping that you'll interact today and engage. I am going to draw your attention to the chat function. So if you haven't already located it, please find it now. Because we are going to do a couple of Q&A bits today. We're going to do some breakout sessions, but really get the conversation going. And one thing I will say is I'm really aware that you guys have put time aside in your diaries for this. But for me, it's all about your input as well as the detail I give you. So please, please, please feel free to interrupt me, ask me questions in the moment. I have no problems with that. It's all about you and what you get out of it today. So I hope that means you found the chat function because we are going to step into a question straight away. One thing I always say about attracting talent to businesses is everybody focuses on package. And I wanted to understand from the room what your thoughts are on this. So let's step into the first question. True or false in the chat, please. Do you think that salary is still the biggest driver when applying for a new role? Going to see what starts coming through. Oh, okay. Okay. Wow. Oh, Emma, I'm so sorry. I'm going to pick on you because you've given me an ish and I love an ish. Where is Emma? Do you want to share with me, Emma, why you think an ish is valid? I'm coming for you. I'm so sorry.
I knew that had happened. It's no problem. I think it is still true-ish, because I think, especially at the moment with financial constraints in households, salary probably is the ultimate driver. But I think something triggers you to move before then, if that makes sense. So, you know, whether that be development or you're fed up in your existing role, so that will start you off. But then I do think salary massively still kicks in. So yeah, I hate to say it. I'd like to be sat on the positive side. I saw all the falses and thought, I'm going to be controversial here. But yeah, I do think, you know, if you had the choice of 4 companies, for example, similar roles, you are going to go package. So
right. Interesting.
Yeah, I think
Thank
so.
you, Emma, so much for sharing.
No worries.
Ian, you also said true. Can I pick on you? I'm so sorry, but I'd love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, of course you can pick on me. I think the salary banding has to be there or thereabouts, so it's not something you'd consider. So I think within that banding, then obviously there's other key drivers which you probably go and talk about. But I think you know, if a role's below a salary expectation, it wouldn't be considered. If it's within a banding, I think it is considered, and then all the other value add things come into play.
Yeah, really valid, really valid. Thank you for sharing. Sarah, you said depends on the level of the role. What do you mean by that?
Hello, by the way.
Hello.
Hello. I think, you know, maybe someone early on in their career or someone that might not have big career aspirations, for example, and is quite maybe set in a certain type of job, would laterally move for more money. I think that would be a key driver. I think maybe people that are a bit more further on in their career, within reason, to your point, Ian, it probably has to be within the right band, right, in terms of what that money is. But there could be a lot of other factors that might play into someone moving in terms of potential extra progression within a new business or something like that. So it's probably not a clear-cut answer. I think it's really personal, I suppose, to the person and where they are in their career and what they want to get out of it. But I also think there's a massive piece, isn't there, in terms of LinkedIn. Some of them have salary ranges on there and some of them don't. And if that salary range is shown and isn't what you're on currently or what you would be expecting, it probably would put quite a few people off potentially. I would say.
You touched on a point there, Sarah, that I might be covering a little bit later. But yeah.
Sorry, spoiler.
Really, really valid. Thank you. Does anybody want to come off mute and share why they said they think it's false? Because we had loads of false in here. Oh, is it a tumbleweed moment? Do I need to call a name? I'll go on, Adam. Thank you.
I just said false because it was I think the word biggest
Yes.
made my decision, because I don't think it is the biggest driver anymore. I think there's so many other factors and stuff like that. So I only said false because biggest. It is a consideration, clearly, but maybe I just don't think it's the #1 consideration now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I really appreciate everybody sharing their opinions. And actually, we're going to cover that in a second, but I just love to see the lay of the land with an audience and what their thoughts are, because as we know, it's very independent to individual circumstances, and salary is such a big topic. So yes, thank you, everybody. We've got one more, and this probably leans us a little bit into probably a bit of COVID times. And I'll be really honest, prior to COVID, I had never worked from home before. I had no idea what a work from home policy was, nor did I understand why you would work from home when you had an office to work in. But again, true or false, 100% remote working is a priority for job seekers. What are your thoughts? Okay, Sarah's gone false. Emma's gone false. Okay, doesn't need to be 100%. Yes, valid, really valid. Okay, I think we're all saying no. Anyone wants to say true and have a chit chat with me? Because I'm curious on your reasons. No, I think we're sticking to false. And actually, I think everything you've mentioned there. Oh, Adam, flexibility is important, though. It is indeed. We'll talk about it in a second. Yes, we're seeing a massive shift in the market. One of which I would say 100% remote working 5 years ago, absolutely. It would be really applicable. People wanted to work from home if they weren't in industries that relied on in-person work. And actually, I see it as a topic on LinkedIn all the time where people are saying, I'm looking for 100% remote working. But actually, Adam, you've mentioned flexibility, really important. We've talked a little bit here around different people, how the talent market is changing. And actually, you're not wrong. Talent decisions now are multifaceted. There are so many factors to consider when they are looking for jobs. And we're talking overarchingly the benefits package in theory right now. That's not all that we talk about when we're attracting candidates, but one of the most important things. The 2026 talent market is probably one of the weirdest, I would say, I've seen. It's not just about salary. You used to be able to pull people out of a job and pull them into a new vacancy, especially agency days, with more money. It was a given. People wanted to move. They wanted that financial security. You don't see that now. And actually, we've listed this as one of the reasons in a conversation just then. Total Jobs have reported that 80% of job seekers become less interested in jobs when the salary isn't listed. That's huge. And it's something that I feed back to my business all the time. We don't actively advertise our salaries. And that's an initiative that we've been dealing with for about 7 years. It's something that we're challenging. We want to do it. We want to be different, and we want to show up in the market and be honest. Not because our salaries are the best, but actually because being honest about the package is exactly what candidates are looking for. We've mentioned flexibility is important in some of these comments that we've had in the chat. I couldn't agree with you more. We talk about commuting hours being really, really heavy on day to day. I actually commute an hour to the office. I don't mind the commute. I love a podcast. I love a little bit of music, whatever it might be that I like to listen to. That for me is really important. But I also like to make sure I have work from home days. And I like my team to make sure they have that too, because again, they have that flexibility. I'm going to mention something that's really topical right now. Does anybody go to the gym here? Okay, I got some hands up. Any others? No. Okay. Well, actually, one of the biggest things that we talk about when it comes to flexibility is about making sure that people can go to the gym because they want to have that personal time. So I often, Devlin, not as often as I should. Yeah, same. I do like to go 3 times a week, but I probably could go a lot more. But actually, it's about personal scheduling. It's about giving people the opportunity. So these things are what really matter. The other thing, well-being offering, mental health is huge at the moment. We know that there's various different factors that are affecting it. And actually, it's about what businesses are doing to show up to offer that to them. And the same with development and progression. Squiggly careers are a thing. And I think, I've just seen, not when you have the Joe Wicks app. I think this is a conversation about the summer conference that's just happened, which is amazing. But yeah, so again, development and progression, squiggly careers. One of the most common questions that we get at interview now is all about what options they have. Is there study support available? What can I learn in this role? So yeah, really, really important. The four key things that matter when you're looking at attracting and what you're putting on your job adverts. But as we know, that's not everything. It's probably the hook that gets people in, but it's actually not everything. So what I would like to do, Devla, I'm going to ask you for your assistance now. We're going to go into a breakout session. And I want to understand a little bit about from you guys, what made you join your organizations? So 10 minutes in groups, what specifically attracted you to your organization and what influenced your decision most? So I'm hoping you found that session really good to understand different viewpoints. Does anybody want to share what they were discussing in their groups? Anybody feeling brave enough to come off mute?
Yeah, I don't mind if it helps, Abby. So for me, sort of not being at the start of my career, albeit I went over that bump a long time ago. For me, the most important thing in terms of the role that I've now got was people and cultural fit. So I don't know about anybody else, but I've made a few decisions over the years based upon what feels right, or no, not what feels right, actually, what looks right and what is probably the right thing to do. However, I soon realised that in order to get the best out of me, I've got to be surrounded by the people that understand me, work with me, and can actually bring the best out of me. So that was a key thing for me, was people and cultural fit. And then the second thing, which is really close by as well, was actually the outcomes of the role as well. So I'd sold a lot of products over 26, 27 years. I wanted to sort of sell something different. I'd like to sell the dream of the FWD, but nobody's going to believe that. But I liked the fact that this role probably leaves a little bit more of a legacy than, with the best will in the world, selling a new version of Pepsi Max Cherry.
Nice.
That was like a mic drop moment.
It was, wasn't it? I've not had the
Stage
Pepsi Max
pause
cherry.
there.
Are you suggesting I should go and try it? Is that the
Pepsi
lasting
Max
advice?
Cherry?
I've never had it.
What?
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm a full fat Coca-Cola girl. I'll be really honest. So yeah, sorry. But I'll try it for you and I'll feedback to it as well.
I'm still thinking about options there, but yeah.
Any others that want to share what was talked about in their groups? Anyone feeling brave enough to come off mute? Go on, Ian. I saw you take yourself off mute there. Was that an accident?
Yeah, it was an accident.
I'm so sorry. You're gonna have to give me something now.
Yeah, I think some of the consistent conversations in our group was around culture and flexibility. So very similar to what Spencer said, a culture that allows you to thrive, and the flexibility that allows you to do your job well, but also manage your life. I think that came out in our group. Although it was stated again that package is important. You know, people have commitments, so that is important. But the thing that came through with everybody was culture, people, flexibility, and the opportunity to develop. And there's a piece around the role. Like, most people are talking about a role that excites them. So very similar again to Spencer's outputs. What is the output? Do you think you can make a change in those outputs? So broadly similar.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Anything that hasn't been mentioned that was brought up in any of the chit chats?
To share, one that came out was like daily commute. It's quite important as well. The amount of time that you're on the road, if you're in 3 days in the office and stuff, that was what somebody mentioned. But then the other bit was, I mean, all of your bits about salary, flexibility, well-being, and all that came out from most individuals. The one thing that sort of also came apparent is there was a few of us that have been in roles a long time or at a business a long time, and that's down to the culture and also development opportunities and the progression that you get. You know, that was absolutely crucial of stopping people looking for other roles.
Oh, hit the nail on the head there, Adam. That's something we'll be talking about in a little while, but it's all interlinked, isn't it? I think this is what sometimes we underplay, that value when you're starting your journey with a business versus how you stay. I actually am really pleased to hear some of this stuff, because I think I mentioned earlier on that, you know, some say I'm a subject matter expert, but actually all the knowledge that I have comes from market trends, statistics, and actually candidates. You know, if I'm not having conversations with people and understanding what their viewpoint is on a day-to-day basis, I don't know my market. And interestingly, you mentioned it, adding value, one of the biggest things that people are looking for when they're joining businesses at the moment. The manager buy-in, is this manager going to let me do what I need to do in my job? And ultimately, yeah, you know, we won't underplay package. Package is what brings you to the door. How you commit to it in the next stages is what brings you really great candidates through that door. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how this particular talent market is one of the multi-generational workforces that we have ever seen. So I put together a little bit of a composition. This is an estimate, guys. I'll be really honest with you. And the reason I say this is because ONS data, so the Office of National Statistics, they don't do age groups based on like age distribution. They only really do about the employment roles rather than the generational cohorts versus the age mapping. So it's an estimation, but I think it really highlights how our workforce is playing out and then what that means. So we've got boomers making up 9% of our workforce at the moment, Gen X making 31% up of our workforce, millennials 37%, and Gen Z 23%. And interestingly, how these individuals show up, they show up really differently. And that's really hard to convey when you're attracting candidates, because if you ask me to convey in a job advert stability and reward, but also progression, validation, and being values driven, you would probably be reading a dissertation at this point, wouldn't you? And actually, that's really difficult. And that's why attracting candidates doesn't just happen on a job advert. It happens in various places, and it matters where we show up. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going off script completely here because you're such a fantastic bunch that you're really interactive with me. So I'm going to ask, how long do you think job applicants spend on average reading a job advert? Feel free to put it in the chat, come off mute. I'll take any guesses.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. Aaron said 4 minutes. Lindsay's going out with 2. Oh, Emma, the younger you are, the less time. I do love a controversial opinion. Emma, I'm going to come to you. What makes you say that?
I love this. I've got a 19-year-old, so that says it all, really, doesn't it? So he's just coming up to 20. So attention spout of a gnat. So it's a quick headline. Is it the right title? Where is it? Kind of quite clinical, I guess, in his approach. So any extras is probably just disengaged, and it's me that will force that and say, have you had a look at this? Have you had a look at that? So I know I'm probably generalizing there, but I'd say that's probably quite common, I think.
What's your son's name?
Harry.
Emma, I would like to award Harry the points for being the absolute spot on for candidate average. Like, I genuinely would highlight that it's 14 to 50 seconds for how long you're spending on a job advert, and what you've described is literally spot on. So candidates will look at the job title, they will look at the location, and if salary is listed, they'll look there. If they see what they like, they will scroll, but then not spending a lot of time at all. It is a scam. And interestingly, when you compare that with the amount of time recruiters spend on CVs, I won't make you guess, but it's 6 seconds. At that point, you're literally thinking, wow. And you know, hand on heart, I will sit here, and if I'm looking at in my role, I will look after exec recruitment. Naturally, I spend a little bit longer than 6 seconds on exec recruitment because there is more to the CVs, but reality is you're scanning for what's applicable to you, just like a job application. Same thing. So medal goes to Harry for being spot on in how candidates are actually working the job boards at the moment.
I will make you laugh just finally. Harry works in HR.
Really?
There you go.
How funny. But the reality becomes this is really, really, really difficult to convey in a job advert. And then ladder in that candidates are only spending 14 to 50 seconds reading a job advert. Now that data is according to the LinkedIn study, but reality sets in. How can I convey stability and reward, autonomy and balance, development and work-life balance, progression, validation, and being values driven? And this is where we have to start talking about employer's brand. And I'm not talking about employer branding. I'm talking about the brand you have and how people talk about you. You know, for example, I would love for you all to walk away today to say, do you know what? Abby landed a great session. Bookers should be proud to have her employed with them. That for me is their brand. They have a great colleague working for them. That's not necessarily Booker and what they do in the market, but it's about the people that work for them. And that is invaluable, especially when it comes to multi-generational workforces and how we show up with them. What that looks like further along when it comes to job adverts and how we attract is basically making sure that benefits matter, but they're not everything to candidates. So showcasing that in our attraction channels. And I'm not talking about just job boards. I'm talking about how you show up in social media, what that looks like in the grand scheme of, you know, LinkedIn posting, showing real life stories. It's built on trust, real life stories. It's not marketing. It doesn't need to be polished. I'm not a polished person, but I also certainly know that people buy into me more for being real rather than scripted, disciplined, and only mentioning what words are on a script versus being real with people. So again, making sure that we're highlighting exactly who we are and what we stand for. I've mentioned this already, but they trust employees. I'm going to show you a couple of snippets because I think it's really important to showcase this. But again, job boards are expected, but they don't do the work. We've talked about polished messaging. It's not the be all and end all. But ultimately, I think it's underpinned by what candidates look for, what feels believable. I've got an array of different generations in my team, and they do genuinely look for different things when it comes to when they joined us, but also when how they stay and what that looks like with progression. I'll talk about that in a little while. But ultimately, they really care about how they're treated, and I think that's underpinned in every step that we take when it comes to candidate interaction. The reason I wanted to move on to this slide, and I'll just bring this up for you, this isn't about me saying what Booker do well or do great, but I wanted to highlight to you how it can show up in things that you may not notice. So I often hear people saying, you know, oh, Booker done a really good post on social media, or you mentioned this or you mentioned that. And sometimes I think in the world of LinkedIn now, or social media, people often feel like you're showing off, or you know, it's sort of, you know, showboating a little bit. I don't think it's about that at all. I think it's about real messages from real colleagues. And this for me brings it to life. So part of our attraction within our business is actually that my team manage the LinkedIn channel and all the comms that go out on it. And we bring to life what our business stands for by doing that. And the reason it's so important, and this was actually part of one of the things I mentioned on the panel I was on with Nick at the IFE, we talked really heavily around what people look for. It's not just the attraction side of things of a benefits package, it's about how you're showing up in your industry. You know, one of the posts here, I don't know if you can see it because it might be a little bit small, but it's about showing racism, the red card. That matters publicly. You know, it's about progression. One of the butchery academies we've got on the screen here, Trudy Wilson just celebrated a long service award. Again, fantastic. She's a woman leading our supply chain teams. Things matter to people because they want to see themselves represented in the businesses that they want to join. And that isn't generational. That matters to everybody. So yeah, I wanted to share that because I think it brings to life another avenue that isn't just standard job boards, job adverts, what you're writing, the benefits package, because it matters. And that's the bit I think sometimes it gets a little bit missed. So my overarching opinion, because this is all about opinions, I think today, is that people join businesses when they believe what they're being told. You can write anything in job advert, but if you don't show up and showcase what the business is truly about in other spaces, or even when you're interacting with people on that day-to-day basis, whether it's that interview, on that telephone screen, whatever you're doing in that moment to validate that application, they're not going to believe that. And they'll lose interest. So it's about drawing them in with a great benefits package, or as good as you can possibly offer in your business. But in addition to that, showcasing what they can bring to the role and how we can get them to grow. So obviously, we're going through a little bit of a journey here. We're trying to bring people into a business, which hopefully we've done a good job with all of the attraction channels. But ultimately, when we've got them, we want to keep them. We want to make them stay. And this is where I probably want to ask you guys another question. And Deborah, if you wouldn't mind being my technical guru again, please. The next breakout we're going to do is about what has made you stay in your current roles. Because hearing from you matters. You're in roles at the moment. Hopefully, you're going to have some really good opinions on this. So what's kept you in roles before, whether it's this role or a previous role, and what matters to you beyond pay or title? So again, taking away that little bit of a hook that brings people to a business, what matters the most to you beyond that? Does anyone want to share with me what's made them stay in their current organisations or roles that you've been in before? Anyone that wants to come off mute and give me some content, juicy content. Oh, this one's a bit quieter.
I'll jump in here, Abby.
Oh, go on, Nick. Thank you.
So a lot of the conversation revolved around progression, culture within teams, and having that flexibility to move into perhaps different roles on secondment or up into more senior roles. For me, a lot of it's around the people that I get to work with, both internally and externally, brings a lot of enjoyment to my role, and keeps me sort of where I want to be.
Brilliant. Anyone else?
So we mentioned, or it might be maybe I say we, it might be me who mentioned like the importance of the relationship you have with line managers. That's a critical thing for people to stay. You may be in a business which culturally is great, ticks all the boxes, but a relationship with a line manager, whether you feel recognised, can share honest feedback and empowered, is it's pretty important.
Absolutely spot on, Ian. And actually, I'm just going to go through the 4 key things. Well, actually, there's 5, but we'll say 4 because actually one of them is about being underpinned by psychological safety. And you're not wrong. And I think, Nick, Ian, thank you for sharing. You've both hit the nail on the head. If you haven't got that manager support or a great relationship with your manager, I'll be honest, it might as well be a dead end, because you have to have that trust. You have to have the opportunity to be able to share with them, to be honest, to be able to speak up, be brave. Key things that really drive day-to-day interactions, whether that be with your manager, your wider team, cross-functional teams. It's about making sure that you can get on in your business. We call them everyday conversations in Booker, and actually they really do matter. But ultimately, it's about making sure that you have those regular check-ins, someone who will advocate for you and speak up for you. But tying into that, and again, going back to generational differences, flexibility and trust, you need to have the autonomy to work as you wish. You know, I don't do things the way my team do, and they probably wouldn't want to do it the way I do it, because we've learned differently, and that's perfectly fine. You don't need to have 10 carbon copies of Abby, nor would you want 10 carbon copies of Abby. But ultimately, it's about autonomy, for being able to sharpen yourself and do it as you feel comfortable to do, but having the same outcomes, that shared success. being able to feel valued in your role. We spoke about validation and values-driven recruitment for Gen Z. It matters. They want to be recognised, not just Gen Z. We all do, you know, recognition for the hard work that you put in. And being able to say that I feel valued in the role that I do, because, you know, we spend a very, very large proportion of our lives at work. If for anything, any other reason, you wouldn't want to be miserable. So let's make sure that we are letting people know that they're valued. Nick, you hit the nail on the head there with a little bit of like stretch and career progression and probably constantly learning. Personal growth doesn't have to mean, you know, rolls up a career ladder. It can be squiggly career moves. It doesn't have to be linear all the time. But you can just do things that stretch you, that teach you new skills, that actually make you feel like, you know, you're coming to work and you appreciate what you're getting. But like I said, everything for me is underpinned by psychological safety, because if you're not comfortable in speaking up or even saying, look, I'm struggling with a little bit of this, I need a bit more space, I need a little bit more movement here, or I need a bigger deadline, or this work, you know, I've not got enough resource, I'm a little bit overworked here, the deadlines are mounting, or just safe to be yourself, then actually it won't work. So spot on, Ian, in the comment that you made about manager. I think that's where the conversation starts, but it's about how you show up as well. I wanted to give you a little bit of industry knowledge that we lean towards. So for anyone that doesn't know, CIPD is the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. Now, this is typically a benchmark that we use in the HR industry. And actually, the CIPD do a good work index yearly. Now, this is its 8th year, I think, and I think this will be sent out to everybody, so there is a link there that you can read it, and I find it fascinating. It's based on a survey of 5,000 employees that basically cover questions that highlight what does good work look like, how's that linked to job satisfaction, pay, benefits, skills development, how that shows up in having a voice at work, the autonomy you have in your role. And I pulled some of the bits out that related to retention because I felt like it was really applicable. So, for example, they say here that flexibility is a major retention lever. So again, they're saying that it's unmet in industries at the moment, that there is 80% of employees agreeing that flexible working improves quality of life, with a strong demand for a 4-day week. I personally would love that. And compressed hours. So I think seeing some of these numbers, it tells us where the workforce could be moving. And if there are big players in the market that show up with 4-day weeks and compressed hours, I think we might all end up with a retention problem. So I would keep our eyes peeled on that because it's definitely applicable. Again, Ian, you mentioned manager, but I think it leans to a little bit more of a wider reach here. But feeling heard directly impacts retention and performance. I agree. You perform better. You go above and beyond. And I mean, you know, I've got personal stories here, but when I think about my boss is fantastic in literally letting me get on with whatever I fancy doing, failing fast, learning from my mistakes, or being super successful. And actually, for me, I know that I'm going to go running at my next task because I'm so excited at the prospect of what it could end up like, whether it is a real big success or it's going to be something that actually it didn't have any legs, and that's cool. I'm comfortable with failing fast, but ultimately it's that trust and autonomy, and it really, really, really helps me. They say that less than 50% feel managers genuinely enable their voice. I can say my boss does not sit in that category, but it is happening in our industry. So as managers, what can we do to show up? And I think it starts with a very bare bones basic conversation. How are you feeling? We talk about stay interviews. I don't know if anybody's heard of these, but actually in our industry, we hear a lot about exit interviews being used, but we don't talk about stay interviews. Stay interviews are literally a moment in time when somebody's employed with you and you ask them, why are you still with us? And as confronting as that is, it's great. you know, they may say your package is brilliant. They may tell you that actually it's because your smile is great and I feel like it's a great environment. I'm leaning towards hypotheticals there, but you know, stay interviews, I think, really get people to have a voice. So one of my suggestions. And then lastly, well-being is a critical retention risk. Absolutely. 25% of the individuals surveyed say work harms their mental health. And actually, I almost didn't put this in here, but I felt like it was really pivotal because the world is changing. But what I would say is we've become far better now than, let's say, 20 years ago about talking about what affects us. You know, we talk about, for example, EAPs being prevalent in businesses now, whereas, you know, maybe 15, 20 years ago they weren't. And actually, would you hear people talking about mental health? Possibly not. But the reality is if we don't talk about it, we don't hear it. And it's about making the room safe for people to talk and let you know that, for example, they're feeling like mental health is affecting them. What can we do? How can we show up? What does that conversation start? And look, we won't all have the answers, but actually the start of the conversation, I think, is about how we find the answers together. So hopefully that good work index gives you a little bit of an idea of what that shapes to be. So we've covered this already, but retention is driven by everyday experience. Manager relationship matters most. Flexibility and trust show respect. Feeling valued and listened to is really, really key. Growth without promotion still matters. And safety to contribute honestly, again, really important. So retention isn't about stopping people from leaving. It's about giving them reasons not to disengage. Really important, I think. Now we're on to progression. I was going to send you all to a breakout area, but I'll be honest, we've had some real good chats here that we're probably running out a little bit of time. So I'm going to probably freeball this a little bit. Sorry, Deborah, I don't need your technical expertise this time. And I'm just going to ask anybody that's in the call to come off mute and talk about this with me. Feel free. How have you progressed in your career? What has that looked like? How did it come about? Did you understand why you were chosen? And if nobody wants to share, I will be forced to talk about myself, which is just really unfortunate. Oh, I've got a tumbleweed moment. Shall I take one for the team and put myself up? Shall I? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk about two sides of progression actually. So I would say I've always been the sort of person that will head down, work as hard as I possibly can, always ask to be stretched, go through to various different projects, genuinely wanting to get my name out there. And I always thought that that was probably the most important part of you know, putting your name out there, you know, getting recognition. That absolutely will land a promotion. And actually, I would probably say that that's maybe not where it starts. And I will talk about that in a little bit. But so in my career with Booker, I started as a recruitment and attraction partner. And I probably would say I took a step back to come on board with Booker. And the reason being I was acting director for my recruitment agency. The owner was on maternity leave and I was covering that for her. But I was really keen to come into Booker. I wanted to work for a brand as big as them and as great as them. I love them. So my boss poached me, and actually I then worked from 2019 until 2021 as a partner, and I got promoted as a manager. I personally would just say the reason I was chosen was because I genuinely wanted to know everything and everyone. There was no rock that was unturned. My old boss, who's now retired, living her best life in the sunshine, she often referred to me as a dog with a bone because I genuinely wanted to know everything. And sometimes I think that gives you the opportunity to really understand the landscape that you're stepping into. And I personally feel like it gave me that breadth of knowledge, not necessarily the upward trajectory from a career ladder perspective, but that breadth of knowledge to be able to say I can stand over this, and I can have those great opportunities. Does anybody else feel like they have similar experience in that, or want to understand maybe the nitty-gritties of how progression works rather than sharing stories? Because I will probably go next. Oh,
Abby, I've got some views on progression which might be interesting to put out to the room.
yeah.
So I'm a big fan of progression when you can sort of materialize it yourself, you know,
Yes.
see the vision, you've got the ambition to go for something, or you want to explore another area of the business and put forward a bit more of a case. I appreciate that's not always the situation that unfolds. But how much of progression do you think in the workplace takes part around, to put it candidly, like dead man shoes versus like self-engineered progression?
Oh, that's a great question, Nick. And actually, can I skip your question and go?
We can circle back.
I'm
No
going to
problem.
skip your question. No, actually, I'm going to skip your question and let my next slide do the talking, because actually I've always said that progression starts with you. It's not your boss. It's not anything that they do. It's you as individuals. And I'll give you my next career milestone as a story here. So I was selected, and I always get a little bit embarrassed about this, but I'm very pleased, very proud. But I was selected for the prestigious Women's Development Programme in Tesco. 100 women are chosen, and I was one of 100. And it felt really special to me. And I, as you can tell with my laying the groundwork there to describe myself as a dog with a bone, I was like, yes, I've made it. I've got onto this program. This promotion is so going to be mine. I can't wait. And that was 2024. And I will be really honest with you and tell you, my progression hadn't even started before that program. I'd done the groundwork and absolutely was potentially the subject matter expert. People knew who I was, they knew the work that I delivered, they knew my brand, but that was literally probably grassroots, ground up. That was it. I genuinely thought being put on the program was probably a guaranteed progression route and a promotion. Absolutely not. It really does start with you. And actually, one of the questions I got asked on this program was, why do you want to be promoted? Well, because I do. Why are you asking me that? Of course I want to be promoted. Why do I have to have a reason? But actually, to senior business leaders, it does really matter. Having people lead their teams and having the values that they share, it's about making sure that leadership is right. So just because is not an appropriate answer, just in case anybody wants to answer that question the same, I wouldn't suggest. But yeah, I very much learned quickly that saying you wanted a promotion isn't actually what promotes you. It's about you, your brand, who shows up for you in what rooms. And actually a little bit like I've orchestrated here. So Nick, I don't know if you were in my brain asking this question, but it's a fantastic opener. It starts with a career plan. I'm talking PDPs, individual career plans, really what that looks like. And it doesn't need to be, I'm Abby and I want to be CEO. Deborah, Lindsay, cut that out. I don't want to be CEO. Please don't put that on the recording. But, those stepping stones, what do I want to learn? What does that look like? How can I bring this into my business? It doesn't need to be the finished article. It needs to be small bite-sized chunks that are achievable. I always say to my team that PDPs are literally a growth plan. They're not something that needs to be a finished article. And that for me was pivotal in this moment when I went on that program. The next thing, your personal boardroom. This sounds really corporate, and it's actually not. It's who advocates for you. Who do you have that's going to speak about you in rooms that you're not present in? And actually, talk about you in really, really great lights that people then want to meet you. They want to invite you to those rooms, invite you to the party, have you share your views and ideas. That could be a whole host of people, by the way. It doesn't necessarily need to be like senior exec leaders, but recognizing those differences. So, you know, I would always suggest to people to have mentors. I would have a sponsor, I'd have a coach. They're very different. You know, when you're going through mentorship, they advise, sponsors advocate, coaches support. It's very, very different. And actually, I would always tell people to go and understand those before you understand what they can give you. But also recognizing that this has to be something that is driven by you, for you, not by somebody else, because nobody can tell you what you want to do, nor can they tell you how to show up in that space. And I work, so I manage several teams in our function, and they all want different things because they're at different points in their career. And I always they say, oh, you know, I really want to I want to understand the mentorship library, Abby. What can we do in that space? How can we be a mentor, or how can I have a mentor? Okay, but what do you want from a mentor? And they can't answer that. Same as my question of, you know, just because it's not good enough. So progression does start with you. Sorry, I digress there, but that part for me, I'm really passionate about. Resources, again, really important. Are you reading books about it? Are you understanding what business resources you've got around you? One of the bits that we've got in Booker is about bite-sized learning. And actually, some of the little modules that our L&D team have created are things to do with mastering feedback, how to have difficult conversations, really key things that actually shape you moving forward in your career. So again, things like that can really help you understand things. And then personal growth. I am a huge believer in being comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is my first session with the FWD Academy. And actually, you know, if you'd have asked me a year ago, how do I feel about speaking on a Teams call or public speaking or anything like that, I would be quaking in my boots. And that's being really real with you. It's not something that I like. But actually, what I will say is I am now far more comfortable with being uncomfortable, because actually that's where the growth happens. I would suggest going away to people in your personal growth time to understand what recognizing your brilliance looks like, how to face into imposter syndrome, really key things that will hold you back if you don't understand what they look like. That for me is how you become somebody who's ready for promotions, progression, or just really signaling to your business that there's some growth here. Sarah, you said, was it clear why you were chosen, and how widely advertised was it to the total business that you had been? So two things. Was it clear why you were chosen? I would say so. I always deputised for my boss. In her absence, I was present at exec meetings, the people leadership team meetings, group sessions, and when so we do a thing called it's called Your Contributions in Booker, and one of the things you can do in the moment is actually ask for feedback for your half year and end of year, and in those sessions I got feedback from senior leaders. And a lot of them had referenced how great I was leading the department unofficially. So I think it was clear, but possibly not widely known. But the business did advertise it. They put comms out to highlight my promotion and really celebrate it and share it. Something Booker are very good at. Yeah, I think that's probably, I can't see any other questions. I don't know if I've missed anything there, Deborah. Hopefully, Nick, I've answered your question there. But just to summarise, progression is social, not just formal. It's about your connections, your personal boardroom, who's talking about you in rooms you're not present in. Sponsors advocate, mentors advise. Visibility comes from impactful work and who sees it. People are identified before roles exist, and opportunities often start with someone mentioning your name. for me, progression isn't about being louder, it's about being visible, credible, and spoken for. So hopefully that gives you an idea on our last little topic of progression. So we've covered attraction, retention, and progression. And we do have a VIP guest with us today. So Deborah and I asked Nick to come along and just answer a couple of our questions, because actually sometimes hearing from just the speaker can feel a little bit like a tell session, and that I'm not always a fan of those. So I wanted to give another voice to the room. And I first met Nick when again, I'll be really honest, imposter syndrome. I think Nick was probably talking me off a cliff, I think, actually, because I genuinely was petrified about the IFE panel session. And he was so cool, calm and collected. I loved how much he calmed me down, but also effortlessly networked in our Future Leaders forum session that we had. So for me, Nick is probably the epitome of how you progress through a business and actually really are successful in stepping outside of a comfort zone. Nick, I would absolutely intro you, but I probably would do you just justice. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah,
For the
absolutely.
room to know.
Well, thanks for inviting me first and foremost. Hello, everyone. Really enjoyed the session so far. Probably a useful bit of context as to why I'm sort of speaking to you today as well. So I had, previous to my current experience at Lumina, where I've been for the past 5 years, I spent in excess of a decade in hospitality and really established myself like a career there. I used to be a booker, customer, and I decided post-COVID, as many people did in hospitality, to change that up completely. So the sessions really resonated with me because I definitely wasn't one of the ones that salary and package was most important to me. I actually took quite a significant cut to be where I was at Lumina. And it was more, I know I love food and drink, and I'm super passionate for that. And how can I make that my Monday to Friday? So currently working with Lumina Intelligence, which is part of the William Reed Group, where we get to work with suppliers, wholesalers, food service operators, retailers. So really multifaceted role and great fun.
Good, thanks, Nick. And thinking about your roles that you've had in your career, because you've got some really great experience there, what progression opportunities do you think have had the biggest impact on where you are now?
Yeah, good question. So I think it's Rory Sutherland who says, like hospitality is like a free MBA. And I'd really recommend to anyone who's in the room who's got kids to encourage that. It's probably where I learned a lot of my soft skills because you have to wear so many hats. You are the marketing department, you are the sales department, you are operations as well, dealing with stakeholders, ordering from wholesalers, all of that jazz, and dealing with fresh produce. In terms of progression, once I got to Lumina, I was just really keen to get stuck in and involved. Some of my greatest sort of progression as like personal development is just being able to go out and about to industry events such as the FWD. Through William Reed, we do conferences and whatnot. So loads of opportunities like that. And it's all about, for me, building up a bit of a black book of people that I can lean on for advice, guidance and whatnot. And over the past 5 years, it started to get pretty full, which is great to hear, but I'm always looking to connect with more people.
Good stuff. Do you think there is anyone in particular that has maybe had the biggest impact on your career?
So many people I could name. Been really lucky to be really supported by line management I've had over the past few years. They've really encouraged me to push myself and similarly to you, just crack on with things. It's not very often that I ask for permission to do anything anymore, which personally for me is having that freedom and flexibility is awesome.
Brilliant.
So I don't think anyone knows that I'm here today, but I'll let them know afterwards. And being able to take risk and being psychologically safe in the workplace has been really valuable to me. So in my role currently, I work on a few like special projects. They pop out of thin air based off conversations that I have with people around the industry, and then I go away and sort of try to pull them together. So I'm working on very different things week to week, and just get the freedom and flexibility to do so. In terms of actual people and the support I've sort of built around me, or they've built around me, would be a better explanation. Working closely with directors within our business, expanding my network across our wider business as well, and creating those sort of champions internally has been amazing. And then also externally, contacts from suppliers, wholesalers, the FWD have been absolutely amazing for me as well. So I joined the Future Leaders Forum probably about 18 months ago. Lindsay's probably got a better idea of it. But I've actually really enjoyed all of their events. It's great to learn from peers. You get so stuck in the day-to-day sometimes that actually speaking about what others are up to is really inspiring. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm really glad you touched on that, because I said at the beginning of introducing you that our first actual introduction was the IFE panel, and I'm not kidding when I say that Nick really calmed me down. He was such a cool, calm and collected person, a true networking guru, but somebody that I just felt was really well thought of and a man with a plan. And I guess my question becomes, is that natural to you, or have you had to work on that?
I've had to work on that massively. I'm super comfortable with people one-to-one, but bigger groups, public speaking was never really a huge part of like previous roles that I did. I'm fortunate enough to be in a business where public speaking is a massive output of what we do on a week in, week out basis. So at the start, it was a very much fake it till you make it type situation, getting thrown in at the deep end a little bit. And I've worked on that, and it's probably been one of the biggest drivers to me getting more involved with the Future Leaders Forum at FWD. Really honing those skills, get more comfortable with larger groups. Also hearing other people speak on a frequent basis, I think is a really valuable tool. So encourage all sort of line managers in the room today to encourage your team to get out the office from time to time and go to public events, whether they're web-based or in person, because the takeaways are absolutely massive.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, a little birdie told me you might have been nominated for something, and maybe a star award. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was a bit of a really cool surprise. It's something that I wasn't really expecting, but having spoken to Lindsay and Derbler, massive thank you. And I guess a lot of that was revolving just getting involved and stuck in. So presenting at events, being present, showing up, and I always like to say yes to everything I can. So if I've got availability in my diary, I always will do. But it's also a reflection of perhaps the business that I'm in and the people that surround me that give me the sort of flexibility to be able to go and do all these things. So a team win as well.
Well done. Big congratulations on that nomination, Nick. I think I'll let you off the hot seat now, Nick. Thank you so much. I think you've shared some really great insight there. And I do genuinely hope that everybody is taking away some really juicy bits from this topic today. I tried to make sure that we could cover various angles, as well as hearing from individuals that have really inspired me when I've stepped outside my comfort zone. So I'm really conscious of time. But a big thank you for everybody that gave up time in your diaries today. If there are any questions, I will take them, but I'm very conscious of time. So if you do need to run off, please feel free to do so. But thank you all so much for attending. I think, I don't know, Deborah, if there have been any questions in the chat. I'm not sure if I've seen any.
You've been all over them as they've been coming through. So not unless anybody has been gatekeeping or sitting on a brilliant question to finish on, but as far as I can see, we've got most of them covered. There was one from Spencer earlier, if we wanted to come back to that one.
Sure. Spencer, my favorite topic. Any views or thoughts on AI CV screening? Very, very topical in the talent acquisition space at the moment. Any views? I don't like it. I really don't like it. I believe that hiring decisions should be people-led. And the reason being is because people are people and people buy from people. Absolutely. Do I think you can utilize it to shape your recruitment strategies? Yes. Do I think that it should have the lasting or ultimate decision? No. We use automated processes in Booker, and ultimately what that does is it automatically shortlist candidates versus automatically rejecting. I don't like how much we are leaning to AI to do things, because I think we're missing the human aspect of it. But I really, really, really see the benefit in certain spaces with how you can save so much time, you can be more efficient, that it can give back so much time to recruitment teams, for example. So I'm probably on the fence, maybe more towards the no, I don't like it than I do love it. But listen, ask me in a year, maybe I will love it, who knows? Any other questions? No.
I have
Okay.
I have one question, but it's more of like a tactical kind of pivot to those people that are in the feedback form. So my question is not to you, Abby, but it is to everyone who's attended today. I'm going to pop the link in the chat. We would really, really appreciate if you could spend the few remaining minutes, I guess, just filling out some of those questions. We're always wanting to know, what are the topics you want to hear about in these sessions? What excited you enough to give up 90 minutes of your time? What time is the best for us to be bringing people together to have these online sessions? So if I could ask that question to all of you, the link should be popping up in the chat right now. So that's it. And if there are no more questions, I guess the only thing to say is just thank you so much to Abby. What an amazing job you've done. This will not be the last time that we hear Abby talking about this topic. Lindsay and I already have plans in the work for making sure that this is a topic that's on the agenda.